And yeah, and we will have some time for Q&A too. So at the end, so please don't leave if once our presentation's over, because I think it'll be a great opportunity as we might have shared questions, clarifications, and concerns. So let's go ahead and get started.
All right, so first we'll introduce ourselves if you aren't familiar with us. So I'm Dr. Michelle Gravier. I'm from the Department of Speech, Language, and Hearing Sciences. And Divya, did you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Divya Sitaraman. I'm in the Department of Psychology in the College of Science. And this year, Michelle and I are serving as your grad risk coordinators. So we're doing these workshops and also organizing the Grad Slam this year. So let's go ahead. Okay.
All right, and thank you again for coming today. I assume that most of you are here because you are participating in the Grad Slam, but is there anybody here who is not participating in the Grad Slam, but is just sort of interested in learning more about how to do, presentations? I think it looks like you're all going to be in the Grad Slam, so that's great. So hopefully this will give you a foundation about what the Grad Slam is like, what it is and what it isn't, some, familiarity with past materials. So we'll be showing some videos, discussing them, and some tips and suggestions for your own presentations. And then, as Divya said, a Q&A at the end. Has anybody here been to Grad Slam before or participated in Grad Slam? All right, so we have all new folks this year, so that's great. Okay, so what is Grad Slam? So it's a campus-wide competition for the best short style research presentation aimed at a non-specialist audience. So I bolded a couple of things there for a couple of reasons. But I had a friend who did, so they spread the word, so that's good. So one is the short style research presentation that we'll get to more details in a second, but it's not the same kind of research presentation that you might be used to. It's really about like your research is part of it, obviously what you've been doing, but then the other big part of it, as important as your research, is how you communicate the research, and how you engage the audience. And then the second part that's important to take out of this is that it's a non-specialist audience. So you may have some familiarity with maybe going to a conference in your, in your like domain area. And so you will maybe be talking to people that have some shared knowledge of what you're doing. So you don't really have to worry so much about presenting, the basic background information, or using some terminology that you may both understand. The expectation really is here that you're talking to an audience who, they're going to have some general knowledge of the world, but they're not going to have specific knowledge in your domain. So you really have to communicate things clearly and in an engaging way. So the judges are going to be, for our Grad Slam here, because we have the campus Grad Slam, and we'll be talking about the campus Grad Slam, and then the winner of the campus Grad Slam is going to be invited to go to the statewide competition. So those two things we'll be addressing separately, but they're very similar styles. But here on campus, the judges will be staff, faculty, alumni, and or students. So we have judges, faculty judges. Divya, do you want the judge from, oh, you can unmute yourself.
So we will have judges who are staff from other campuses as well. So we will have staff from other campuses as well, and a community member in addition to faculty and alumni. So really they represent a very diverse backgrounds in terms of their work. So we really want you, but they're all enthusiastic, curious to learn about stuff. So they are very interested, but non-specialist.
All right, we can go to the next one. So our Grad Slam on campus, the actual, in-person competition is going to be April 14th from 12 to 2 p.m. So we had people enter for, show their interest, submit their abstracts, and folks have then been invited to put together their presentation. And then from those, we'll be selecting, I believe, 16 finalists to present at our in-person event on April 14th. So it's Grad Slam, meaning that it's all grad students. So you need to be currently enrolled as a student in one of our graduate programs in order to compete. And then there'll be two different categories. So we have a STEM and non-STEM category. And we'll have one winner from each of those categories that then we will send to not send, that will put forward to the statewide competition, which is on May 9th. And that is held virtually. So there's no travel involved, but each campus will have two different student representatives. So you'll be competing with other CSU students. So we're just gonna, go through some of the nitty-gritty details just for a minute, and then we'll get to the fun stuff. But just so you have an expectation in your head of how all this, start to think about how this would fit with the kind of content that you're planning to present. So first is that you can only have one PowerPoint slide. And it has to be a static PowerPoint slide, meaning that you can't have, animations of things zooming in and out, or you can't have video or audio playing over your slide. So you have to have, everything that's on there is going to be up the whole time that you're presenting your slide. And then we'll talk a little bit later about suggestions for how to keep it engaging. Not having, for example, an overwhelming amount of information on your slide that detracts from what you're actually saying to your audience. Presentations are limited to 3 minutes maximum. So, we do recommend that you use as much of the 3 minutes as you can. You don't want to, do 2 minutes or 2.5. Really take advantage of that time. But you need to practice a lot ahead of time because you can't go over the 3 minutes. If you do go over the 3 minutes, that will result in disqualification. At the beginning, and we'll see a video of this at the end, you'll have the slide up. There'll be a little countdown timer in the corner. So you get a little, like 3, 2, 1, begin. And then you can start your presentation. So you need to make sure to pay attention and not start before your timer begins. I already talked about no electronic media, no props, unfortunately. So you can't wear, like a lab coat and bring your microscope or your fun, things like that with you. But that's not to say that some people don't use their body and do some like engaging things to keep the audience engaged. You just can't have tools or things with you. Did you have oh, we should say if you have any questions as we're going along, please feel free to interrupt us, jump in, raise your Zoom hand, unmute yourself, whatever. Did you have a question, Emily, or are you just turning your video on? Okay, cool. Good to see you. The presentation must be about original research from a project that you are working on. So it's expected that you're not going to be presenting other people's research. Yeah, Kenneth?
Yes, for the recording on March 28th, when we record ourselves, do we have to have the slide up as well, or just ourselves?
Yeah, so you should have right, Divya? The slide up while you're presenting. It
Yes.
doesn't have to be your finalized slide. So if you end up making some changes afterwards, like we actually might be working with you if you're selected as a finalist to give you suggestions about any final, tweaks and tips that we have for your presentation, including your slide. So so yes, please have your slide up, but it doesn't have to be your final slide.
Okay,
Right.
so
Yeah,
the
and there throughout. Yeah, and you can make changes as you go. And
yeah.
so, yeah, your final slide submission is going to happen sometime after in the first week of April, and we'll give you directions for that.
Okay, but the slides and our like faces in the presentation should be in recording as well. Just to be clear.
Yes, your slide should be in the recording. Mhm.
Okay.
So, like we're doing now, share your screen, and then you would do your 3-minute talk over the slide. So there's a chat in the chat. Interpretive dancing is allowed. So, I mean, that's kind of a good question, actually. And that sort of, I think, applies to this slide here. Not everybody who is submitting to the Grad Slam has like a sort of like, typical STEM kind of experimental research proposal. But if you are in a more like creative field, you still need to present information to the audience about, for example, how your work applies to the broader exchange of ideas. So we'll talk about the rubric later, but you want to look at the rubric and make sure that whatever you are, whatever you're talking, whatever you're presenting about, helps fulfill those rubric areas. So, if a little bit of like movement is helpful for that, that's fine. Just to keep in mind though, that 3 minutes is really not a lot of time. So, you're probably not going to have have time to do a whole lot in that time. The data presented on the initial slide can change if we have more data to present by the April presentation date. Yes, yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, do you want to go to the next slide, Divya? And then you have to record your presentation. So this is for us. And provide the link to your video. So we have lots of resources at the end of the presentation for different things. One of them is a PDF and also a YouTube video about how to record yourself if you're not on Zoom, if you're not familiar with how to do that. You don't have to use Zoom. There's lots of other programs. I can't remember the one I used to use for recording my lectures during COVID, but it's a little bit easier to figure out, where you are showing up on the slide. There's more programs have more advanced tools, but you don't have to use that. It can be pretty, straightforward. So you can just have your slide up, share your screen, and then record your screen with your video box on there. But then when you are finished, you need to download it and then
Put it on the drive or
put it in the drive or upload it to YouTube with a link, so that it's visible to us. Because if we go, if we try to go to the link and it's not public or it's not, if it's like a private link, we won't be able to obviously review your video and then you will be ineligible. A couple other things. You'll have to be willing to provide a picture of yourself in a short bio if you are selected to participate, because we like to highlight the students and the work they're doing on the Grad Studies website, and also for the people who attend the Grad Slam. We'll be giving you like a brief intro at the beginning of the competition. Want to go to the next one, Divya? Okay, so now the fun stuff. We'll be talking about, suggestions about how to put your presentation together and things to consider. I mentioned this before, but 3 minutes is really not a lot of time. I think when I work with students who are like new to doing presentations, they tend to get nervous about, half-an-hour presentations or things like that. And I'd much rather do a half-an-hour presentation than a 3-minute presentation personally, because you really have to be well prepared, to say everything you need to say, convey all your ideas and, the significance and everything that you did in 3 minutes. So don't expect that you'll sit down in one sitting and do your slide and your talk, and then it'll be beautiful and perfect, because it'll take a little bit of, a few iterations probably to get it to be where you want it to be. So that's the preface there. So, all right, we'll go to the next one, but it is possible. So, all right. So the first, oh, did you want to talk about this one, Divya?
I can go with the next one. That's fine.
Okay. The first thing is your attention grabbing opener or hook, something to engage the audience. We have a good example of that in the video that we'll see in a second. This one can be tricky because a lot of the opening hooks can be like, I don't know, pretty cliche. So you want to make sure, one, that it's relevant to your topic of your research. And two, that it's, kind of actually attention grabbing or clever. So some of the things that you might consider doing is like asking your audience a question to get them thinking about the topic that you're going to be discussing, or to get them to have, to think about their personal connection with the topic, or something to say to help to make it seem like, that this is to highlight the significance or the importance of the topic that you're addressing. So like, some of these, did you know? So, did you know that, I'm just making something up, but I work with people who've had strokes and have language difficulties. And one of the things that people often start out with in that kind of a field is like, did you know that more people have aphasia, which is what this is called. More people have aphasia than have Parkinson's disease. And most people haven't heard of aphasia, but everybody knows what Parkinson's disease, so that might be something that you could say, or, like statistics or things like that. So do you have another example, Divya, or do you want to just go to
Oh, yeah. For example, my research is on studying sleep in fruit flies. So did you know fruit flies sleep? And I think that really gets to people to be like, what is she talking about? Even that kind of interest is good, right? Because you're trying to, a little bit put a little seed in them so that they're curious about what you're going to say next. And but again, I think it's important with a hook to connect it back to what you're going to say next. So don't get so caught up in the hook. Don't get hooked by the hook that you end up making it very difficult for you to transition. But a good attention grabbing opener, I think, is a good way to start. And all these steps that we're telling you are just kind of suggestions. There can be so many different styles of making a very persuasive presentation. So, but yeah, I study fruit fly sleep, and most people are like, why? So, but that again, can be an interest because they're like, why would a person do that? Kind of. And so I think you have to find that in your own research or the problem that you're working on, right? And again, it's not a necessity, but it helps, right? So let's go to the next slide. And the next step, of course, and I get to do the more interesting parts, talking about how to create these persuasive presentations. And it would be great for you to stop in and ask questions, because once again, these are just some examples we're giving you. There is no one set of formula that you have to apply. So don't feel like this is exactly the way you have to go about it. But this is a good way of tackling a big problem in 3 minutes. So the next thing is, of course, you've got them hooked a little bit. They're interested in what you're going to say. It's at this point that you should try and state your problem, approach, and how it connects because you don't have that much time to build your actual research or project to them, right? So don't dwell too much on the hook and get to the problem statement. And here is an example that I got from this very nice website. There are several other examples as well, which could be more discipline specific for you. So check out these resources as well. We have listed them at the end. But here's an example. For example, cancer is deadly and traditional chemotherapy is one treatment option, but it comes with a lot of side effects. So you've already started to set up your problem statement that it has side effects, so something else needs to be done. And now you can further elaborate it by going and saying, you can see the but, it makes things interesting. But what the audience wants is, okay, so what happens next? So now you can add in and say, therefore, in our research, we load these drugs into tiny carriers called nanoparticles, which can help reduce adverse effects. So now you've gone literally in 2 sentences, your hook and a problem statement, to actually talking about the work you've done. So using your time efficiently is so critical in these 3-minute presentations. And once you've introduced the problem, you can actually, now you have the opportunity to talk about exactly what you've done. Maybe you've created some specific nanoparticles that are less toxic, or your project is checking the toxicity of these nanoparticles. Whatever it may be, you have to remember to use or avoid jargon, because this is an audience, they are engaged, they are curious, but they are not from your field. So what is common language in your field might not be common language to them. And feel free to use tools like analogies, and we'll look at some examples where they've done a good use of analogies, humor, and characterizations, but don't force it, because sometimes, again, don't think about it as, I have to get in an analogy, I have to get in some humor. Do what feels true to your personality, but these are some tools you can use to engage people. I think sometimes it helps to think of this as a conversation with your audience. Include some images and text, but avoid too many details. And this is something Michelle and I were just looking at some of the slides, and we're thinking how wordy it was and how hard it was to focus on the speaker and not start to read the details, right? If someone puts something in front of you, your immediate instinct is to start reading. At least that's me, right? So it is very important to make your slides clean. So almost slides can be a barrier here. So almost keep your slides very clean, just a few images or just the most important text. Don't read from your slide at all. Speak slowly and clearly and focus. I know some of you might have done research for 3 months, 6 months, a year, a few weeks, whatever it is. So do not try to tell them everything you've done. Your job here is not to impress them with all you've done. You have to impress them, but your job is to focus on 1 or 2 things to convey what you're working on or what you have worked on, right? And this is something that as an advice that we found on the websites, and we think this is really important. Don't tell your audience, engage them. Make eye contact and do the things that you do in a conversation. I think that really helps when you keep things conversational, because your audience and your judges, you might be the 10th presenter, so, or the 8th presenter of the day. So, and if you just tell them, this is what I did, that's good, but try to engage them, try to kind of get their reaction. You don't have time to really address their reaction, but at least get them in your topic. And I'm going through these fast because all of us, you're grad students here, so you have heard a fair number of presentations, given a few presentations, and the most engaging ones are those that really where a person is talking to you, where a person is making you feel like they are specifically crafted this talk for you. So I think that's a good goal to start with. So analogies can be powerful. On the left side is the slide from the 3-minute talk, which was about the nanoparticles in cancer. And because it's really difficult to explain to someone specific cancers, tumors, and how drugs work, they made this analogy where there's a road, cars are passing by, and then there's a tumor in 16 kilometers, and now the drugs need to go there. So they have these nanoparticles which go there. So they kind of use this analogy of a road and trees around it, and you're a passenger car. But again, analogies can be very specific and they can be powerful if used correctly. But once again, this is not always a requirement. So I thought at this point, maybe it's good for us to watch one of the good Grad Slam presentations and think for ourselves what works, what did not work. Did the talk have enough focus on the work they did, or was it just giving them an introduction statement? So we can discuss as well what you think about this next presentation. This was one of the winning presentations, but also it does a very good job. Maybe let me not say that. Let's discuss that. So let's go and
just like a little bit of a caveat too. This is the UC Grad Slam. The format is a little bit different from the CSU Grad Slam. So we've been talking about how you can only have one static slide. So you'll notice in these talks that they have animations in their slide. So, you know, just kind of ignore that piece because that does not apply to the CSU Grad Slam. But the focus more on the speaker and their you know, their narrative that they've crafted and how they engage the audience.
yeah, and they make a good use of analogy, humor, but nothing that feels like they're entertaining you, right? They're just conveying information. There's a fine line between becoming very entertainment focused versus really giving the, you know, your content out. So let's look at this.
Imagine this, a weekend night out with some friends. It could be at your favorite restaurant, the bar, or even the club. The place is absolutely packed, so music and voices fill the room. You're trying to catch up and have a conversation with your friends, but you can't really make out what they're saying. The place is way too loud and way too crowded. Similarly, for our brain to work properly, it needs the right amount of volume and visitors. Luckily, it has the blood-brain barrier controlling what enters the brain from the blood. The blood-brain barrier, or BBB, is not just a physical barrier, but a set of properties special to the blood vessels of the brain. To help you better understand the blood-brain barrier, I want you to think about your brain as an exclusive VIP club, the brain. And the blood-brain barrier is like the bouncer to this brain, whom we'll call Bubba Bouncer. There are bouncers at other clubs, just as there are blood vessels all throughout your body, but none as exclusive as the brain. This bouncer takes on a much more active role. It controls the ins and outs of the brain, letting the necessary, like nutrients and oxygen, in, and keeping unwanted guests, like harm and bacteria, out. Holistically, the Bubba Bouncer makes the club thrive. Our lab studies everything about this Bubba Bouncer, in health and in disease. And interestingly, we found evidence that the blood-brain barrier may also be controlling glutamate levels in the brain. Glutamate is what brain cells or neurons use to talk to each other. A message gets passed from one cell to the next using glutamate. Thus, having just the right amount of glutamate is required for our brain to work properly. Having too little glutamate would be like having no message to send at all. And having too much glutamate would be like trying to talk in a club where the music is too loud. Uncontrolled levels of glutamate are associated with brain states like anxiety and other neuropsychiatric conditions. My data supports that the Bubba Bouncer escorts extra unwanted glutamate out of the brain. And this is super exciting because it suggests that the blood-brain barrier may play a role in preventing these conditions. Here's an example of applying this to medicine. In a person with epilepsy, there is often too much glutamate in the brain. What if we ask the Bubba Bouncer to work overtime and kick it all out? See the immense potential in targeting the blood-brain barrier for treating brain diseases? The Bubba Bouncer is, after all, whom you meet first to get to the brain. Thank you.
Okay. So we can have some discussion about it. So, and so what did you think really worked for that? And did you feel like in 3 minutes you learned enough about this process or about this research? You can unmute or you can put it in the chat. I can see some chat messages.
Yeah, I thought it was great. I thought the analogy for her worked really well.
Right.
Because even though I don't know that much about the brain, knowing the analogy helps me remember just that small thing.
Yeah, I thought the analogy was very well used, and there's also new, like so much information that was imparted through that analogy. It was not so like superficial, and still went to depth. So I think the presentation, I felt like we work with brains, so if you know, it feels great when someone can convey a complex topic, very very you know, in a very accessible way. So there's one comment in chat, her data support the research but didn't explain the research. I also felt that way, that in a way it kind of was very heavy on the analogy and concept, that they didn't tell you exactly about what they did with glutamate, what they did with blood-brain barrier. So I also felt that the content could have been a little bit more detailed. So that's a fine balance to find, right? And that's what we do. And when we talk about the rubric, we'll talk to you more about the content as well. So we will get to that. So thank you for that. So I also see fruit fly sleep. So so we need to have a conversation about that too. So anything else anyone wants to add about what they like, what they felt was a little missing?
I can jump in. I think that she did a really good job of pacing.
Yeah.
So it's really easy to just get going real fast when you're presenting. And you can see that she took some meaningful, like, you know, intentional pauses even to sort of signal, okay, I'm moving on maybe to the next thought. So that, yeah, that can be really helpful, I think, for an audience to like, you know, chunk up information so it's not just this stream of right, like you're trying to hurry to fit everything in.
Yeah, the pacing was great on that one. But again, you know, the narrative does not always have to have an analogy, but it's always nice in the 3 minutes to have a beginning where the hook, the big picture, the middle is what's known, what did you do, and an end. So it's important to kind of have a loop and then connect all those loops. And I think if you feel coming out of a 3 minute talk that you've learned something or that you have actually conveyed something significant, that's really an achievement for a 3 minute presentation. So the focus is equal parts engagement, but also content. And as we go through the rubric, we will talk about these two components quite a bit. So now let's look at an example. And it's always good to also connect the end to the beginning. So if you asked an audience a question, do you know how many people do this or something like that? And then you talk about your research, maybe in the end, you should link back and tell them or give them a part of the answer or the work you did in seeking that answer. So I think it's also a good strategy to have a strong beginning, to present your work in the middle, and then connect the end to the beginning so that it feels like, yes, I'm intrigued by this question, and I actually got an answer to this question through this presentation. So
Like in the one that we just watched, one of the you know, she did a really good job also of giving a specific example, you know, because she asked the question, you know, can you see how this engaging the blood-brain barrier might be a game changing for you know, treating neurological diseases or something. And then she gave a specific answer of, you know, here's this condition where we have too much glutamate, and if we could just get people to work over it, we could maybe help address this. So not just saying this is significant, but showing people why that might be the case. So what's, you know, what could be the potential or real impact of what you're discussing.
yeah, and I think there were a lot of details, but yes, the methodological details were a little less, but there were a lot of content details about glutamate, too much, too little, and so on. So I think overall it was a great job. And but again, you don't always have to have an analogy, so don't feel like, oh, I don't have an analogy, so my presentation won't be as good. The next example we're going to show you gets right to the problem and talks about the research. So let's look at a second presentation, which is a little different from the first one we saw, both topic-wise and style-wise, but here it is.
Okay, Shannon, you've got this. Just take a deep breath and turn around and give them a big smile. Hi, I was talking to myself. Do you all ever talk to yourselves? Yeah? Okay, I'm seeing some heads nod. Maybe it's when you're planning what to do later, trying to calm yourself down, or even letting loose a major expletive to blow off some steam. And despite what mainstream media might have us believe, this is actually extremely normal. In fact, children do it from a young age without anyone having to teach them how. And using self-talk is associated with better performance on things like puzzle solving, math problems, motor activity. Athletes are even coached to use it to improve their sports performance. Unfortunately, we see trends where self-talk use starts to go down around age 7, about the time kids enter school, most likely because others label it as weird or disruptive. In addition, there's almost no work investigating how self-talk might affect emotional experience. And this is important for child development because kids frequently have their goals obstructed through things like imposed bedtimes, prohibited items, having to wait patiently, and more. And all of these blocked goals can result in feelings of anger or frustration. Again, very common, very normal, but when they get too intense for too long, they can have lasting consequences, like worse academic success and poor peer relationships. So my dissertation aims to figure out whether self-talk might be beneficial for children's emotional management. How am I going to do that? First, I have to make some kids mad. I'm gonna invite children to the lab to participate in a few games, like this really great toy that's locked in a box. I'll give kids a set of keys and tell them that if they can unlock the box, they can play with that really great toy. Seems easy enough, but I'll let you all in on a little secret. The key to that lock is not on the keychain provided, so it's impossible to open. Children will be alone with this frustrating situation for 5 minutes, and during that time, I'll ask half of them to talk to themselves while the other half don't. Using video and heart rate data, I'll be able to see whether the children who talk to themselves more during report feeling better after, show fewer negative emotional expressions, and experience less physiological stress. If self-talk does prove to be beneficial for children's emotion regulation, this could be a game changer for child development. Instead of viewing it as weird, inappropriate, and something to be stifled, we can instead rebrand it as something helpful, natural, and something to be encouraged to help kids help themselves through big feelings. The best part is it's not just for kids, anyone can use it. So the next time you face a challenging situation, try talking yourself through it. You might just find the key to your own regulatory success. Thank you.
Okay. So once again, we can critique it a little bit and say what parts worked, what parts didn't work. And, if you were the judge or an audience, what you felt like, what you learned from this. So we can open it up and see how our group feels here. I'll monitor the chat as well.
I liked that, I'll start. I liked that she was, she was really engaging, not just even at the beginning, because she had that hook, but she kept that going throughout the talk. So even when she was talking about her methods, she was saying things like, I'll let you guys in on a little secret, right? Because, she's trying to draw them in, and it's like she's having, like sharing privileged information with the audience, which is one way to keep them engaged.
It's true. Yeah, I was like, oh, I want to know the secret. So I think the engagement level was really, really high in this talk. And I think, again, connecting the end, like this is the experiment and this is what I'm going to find and this is what's going to help. I think the connection here was much stronger than the earlier presentation. And the styles were completely different, but they were both very good presentations. As you can see, whatever works for you, for your topic is great. Anything else anyone has about is flawless, perfect? Okay, so I think the next part, of course, for us is to talk to you a little bit about the rubric of how you're going to be judged, or how your presentations, I don't like the word judge, let's say how your presentation is going to be evaluated. And really, it's a focus on both engagement and content. So let's see how the breakdown looks. And the scoring rubric is 1 through 7. 1 does not meet expectations, and 7 means outstanding, no flaws. And of course, in every rubric, there's a little bit of stuff that's very clear and then stuff that's not very clear. So, but the things that the your judges are looking for are two general areas. One is comprehension and content, and the second part is engagement and communication. And the link below, and I think I can take a moment to open up the link below and show you actually. I don't know where I am now. So I can show you in a moment, or we can go at look at the link. But this is a link from CSU Long Beach. They organized last year's Grad Slam. And this gives you more details about each of these criteria. But right here also we
Yeah,
have.
nothing is showing up right now. We're just seeing the top of your bar.
Oh, here, is it showing up now?
Nope.
Okay. Let me reshare and try what I'm doing. So I'm trying to, but we can go and look at this first and then look at that. So, so there are two areas where you will be scored on, comprehension and content, which is presenter was able to effectively communicate the background, was able to describe and bring out the significance of the research, presenter effectively communicated the research strategy design, presentation followed a clear and logical sequence, presenter effectively communicated the conclusions, outcomes, and impact of research. And they're kind of interrelated. So it's not like you have to go through your presentation, see if it's doing each of these things independently. The logical sequence and clear communication go hand in hand. But we do look for you to actually talk about the work you've done, right? So it's not like, oh, in 5 years, it'll be great to know that. Yes, that would be. But so you've described your problem statement, but not talked about the research strategy or the results or the findings. So that will be something that the judges are looking for.
Yeah, so just to kind of, like the second thing that we watched, she was talking about research that was not done yet. Whether or not there's any pilot data, we don't know because she didn't present it. So, different people are going to definitely be at different stages in their research project, but that's not to say that you can't talk about things like the methods design, the conclusions and outcomes, as if, so she talked about if we do find that this is the case, this is what, would be the implications of that. So, you can still kind of address all of these areas, even if you're not at a stage in your research where you have all of your research collected and analyzed and that kind of thing.
So the question, so can we also present a research that has not yet started as just an idea? I think this is a one that we actually have found that people present some data, even if it's preliminary data. Or at least if you've designed the whole study, you have predictions, that means you've done enough research into the problem. So more than an idea presentation, this is a more of research scholarly work that's currently happening, right? And sometimes you might have designed the experiment, are doing the experiment right now, and your results are just not working out a certain way. So that's also okay to present some negative data, but we do want to see a little bit more than an idea, right? We don't want to just see an idea. We want to see a little bit more research done into the idea, a study. So one of the presenters described the study very well with all the details, right? That means that she's looked into different studies, compared studies, and said, this is a study that will address this question. So it's more than an idea. So I would be reluctant to say we can present just an idea, right, Michelle? Or
Right. Yeah. Like you said, it doesn't have to be like back to the second talk. She didn't have any data yet, but she had a very clearly defined research question that addressed, an area of need, a gap. So like you said, she had done a lot of looking into the background, had a specific approach that she was going to use to answer the question. She didn't have hadn't at least presented the results of the study, but also, again, foreshadowing, thinking about what the implications would be if her hypotheses were supported.
right. So we do need like a research strategy. Like, as I said, communicate the research strategies. If you have some preliminary findings, they always make they elevate a presentation, because then you can actually connect your results to the beginning, right? Which is very powerful in a grad slam. So yeah, so just an idea might be a little bit difficult, but a developed idea with a research strategy, predicted findings can be useful. And also in that study, she's working with kids. So maybe there's a whole lot of, human subjects and all that involved. But again, this is all just kind of giving a reason for it. But again, maybe she's not presenting preliminary data, but she's still presenting a research strategy, which I think has some merit. Okay, and the second component is engagement and communication. This is a 3-minute presentation. You have very little time, so keep your slide clean, well-defined. Don't put anything extra on it that's distracting. Most of your communication is going to happen through you. So make sure you're delivering clearly and not using jargon. The one thing that really becomes very difficult in this type of a talk is jargon, because the moment you say a word in your first minute and then nobody knows what that word is, so the next 2 minutes, they're just sitting and not really engaging with you. So, okay, so
the animations in those other 2 videos, you could see there was mostly pictures
yeah.
that they're presenting, and we'll have some more examples at the end.
And there is a very detailed description of the rubric, which I think I'm going to show you now. I have somewhere that's open right here. Can you see my slide screen now?
Yeah, now we can see it.
Okay, good. So it's kind of weird. Like, I've stopped teaching on Zoom, so I have forgotten how to use Zoom. But here you go. So this CSU Grad Slam is research communication. It's a research communication. And CSU has one rule where you have to have a static slide. So please remember it. The 2 examples we saw, they had animated slides, but CSUs want a static slide. So comprehension and content, engagement, and they also talk to you about clarity, adequate background, organization, language matches the audience, which is avoid jargon, significance, delivery, visual, engagement. So these are some of the things that the judges are going to use to evaluate your presentation. So it's a good place to start thinking about how you're going to include all these elements.
Yeah,
Right?
and this is on the statewide Grad Slam website, which is linked on the slides. And we will share the slides as well from today with everybody who registered.
And we've given you a very short-ish version of, what a presentation could look like, or whether an idea or a research strategy is appropriate. But we suggest in your presentation, which is due, I think, next Friday, you use some of these ideas, think about what you want to tell your audience in 3 minutes, prepare the slide that supports your narrative. I think my approach to a presentation like this would be to kind of prepare a script of what I want to say first and then make the slide, and not the other way. But again, we can all have different ways of approaching this. Record your 3-minute presentation. You can do it through Zoom. You can do it through any software program you want to, and put it on a Google Drive or share the Zoom link. No matter what you do, make sure the link is public, because if on that day we cannot evaluate the semifinalists, we cannot choose you as a finalist. So you will be doing yourself, and because the timeline between you submitting your presentations for the next round, for the finalist round, and us letting you know is literally 3-4 days, we might not have the time to follow up with you. So take time to record your presentation, make sure the link is public, and that you fill out the Google form with the correct link, right? This is really important, because if you don't do this part, we cannot consider you for the final competition. The deadline for submission is March 28th, which is a Friday, but till 11:59 p.m. I almost find Friday 5 p.m. deadlines useless, because I'm not going to evaluate them after 5 p.m. But so you have the day to prepare this presentation and record it. I would suggest recording 2 or 3, then listening back to it, and then choosing the one that you want to share with us. And at this stage, we will be going with some over 40 presentations to about 16. So the competition gets a little bit tougher. So put your best effort. And if you have any questions, we're always available. We love answering these types of questions and addressing these types of, if your research is this or that. But we encourage you to think about the rubric, to think about the content and engagement things that we talked about, in your presentation and take the time. We chose to do this presentation 10 days before the deadline and not 2 days before the deadline because this thing takes time. And we want to make sure that you're thinking about it actively every day a little bit and putting your script together in your mind and then on the paper. Last but not the least, we have so you record and send us a presentation on March 28th. We choose finalists. We let you know early April. And then on April 14th, you do a CSU, used to do a CSU EB-wide competition. And then if you're selected as a finalist for CSU EB-wide competition, you represent CSU EB for the 23 campus event. It's hosted by CSU Bakersfield, but it's virtual. And this year we're going to do a watch party, which means that we're going to watch all the finalists on May 9th at VBT auditorium. There's going to be free snacks, and we're going to celebrate our winners together and have a good end of the semester watch party. So I want to point out all the resources. We could also, since we have about 10:53, if we don't have questions, we can actually look at the video from last year. Should we do that? But we have a lot of resources for you. So depending upon what you're struggling with, like how should I get going? I have problem public speaking. So there are a lot of resources from which we kind of made our slides. So we're making them available. They're all online available. So go ahead and use them. And if you have any questions, we're available. So I think we have about now 6 minutes because I've been talking for so long. If you don't have questions, we can look at the actual Grad Slam event on CSU EB campus and see some presentations. Would everyone like that or have question and answers? Okay, so let's, I think now Michelle shares the screen because she has those videos pulled out.
Sure, I can. Yeah, so two things. So one, we can just look at the grads. This is our CSU EB Grad Slam. This is from 2 years ago. Last year, they did it a little bit differently because there was an undergrad and grad category, but this is where we'll have it at the University Union. There'll be the intro there. These are the judges, and there's a timekeeper, so just so you sort of know what to expect. And so this is how it will work, is that you have, we'll introduce you, you have your introduction slide here that we'll be putting together with the title of your presentation and your name. So just, as a reminder, because you only have 3 minutes, don't start off by introducing yourself or saying the title of your talk, because that will already be something that we will share. So that, that does not and should not be included in your script. So we'll just watch maybe just an example of.
Capabilities as well, right? So I'm just going to sort of read what's up here. So Justin's actually pursuing a master's in kinesiology right now under his advisor, Dr. Kate Barley. The name of his talk is Effects of an 8-Week Training Intervention in Carbon-Plated Running Shoes, How Physiological Adaptations Affect Race Day Performance Benefits. Right? So we're going to go to your slide, and then if you launch and begin when the timer hits to begin. Right? Actually, you want what? Let me make sure.
Test. Yeah. In 2017, Nike introduced
I don't know if you could see it, but there was a little square on the bottom that had the countdown timer.
the Nike Vaporfly 4%. This was the world's first super shoe, and as the name suggests, it improves your running economy by about 4%. We measure running economy by looking at the amount of oxygen that you use to run at a given speed. Super shoes improve your running economy by using a carbon fiber plate that's embedded within a very soft and high energy return midsole foam, which is the foam underneath your foot. We can see it on the top left of the slide. That is half of a super shoe, and you can see that carbon fiber plate within that foam. The combination of these two technologies allows for about 2.5% to 4% improvements in running economy when compared to a traditional racing flat. This shoe in yellow is a traditional racing flat. Notice it has much less foam underneath the foot. There's less energy return in that foam, and there's no carbon fiber plate in that shoe. In elite athletes, fractions of a second decide Olympic medals and world records, and they seek to maximize performance in every way possible, including what shoes they race in and train in. What athletes originally started using shoes
So still here, you can see the countdown timer going, so you can still time yourself. So we can go, you can watch this whole thing. I don't know if we want to watch the entire thing here. I can't hear you, Divya.
Because I'm muted. Yeah. So so I think we can share the links because we have 2 minutes, and I think you can get a sense for the room, and if you have, and again, you can't there was a question about interpretive dancing. I don't know very clearly about that, but you can use your body language, whatever you would use in an engaging conversation, or but you can see the room, the space you have. You can get a sense for how this event space looks like. It's an NPR. And really, what is very important is that you look at the rubric as well as what your audience is looking for. Oh, that's my student on Fruit Fly
Yeah.
Sleep. So, yeah, I
You can
think,
also you can get a sense of what people use for their presentations. The other thing I just wanted to point out real quick, because we only have a couple minutes left, is that one of the other links on there also has the link to the statewide competition.
yeah.
And by the way, I think you said your student and I think the kinesiology student, those were both of the finalists from that
They
year.
were.
So if you kind of want to get a sense of, Emily, you're saying what? And you came in second place?
Yeah, Justin was the friend that I had referred to. I think he came in second place.
Yeah, so I think, if you want to sort of look at which ones were successful from that year that were then referred to the statewide competition, those were those two. So the first one and then the fruit fly one. And then if you look at the CSU competition, it's a little bit different because it's not in person. So, same kind of principle. You share your slide and then do the talk. So we'll just maybe watch 1 minute of this one so you can also kind of get a sense of, and this was the winning talk from this competition. Importantly, pay attention to his slide because it's very just graphics. So that kind of, shows you that is a successful start.
Run microphone and say hello.
Hello.
Hi. All right, are you ready to go?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, perfect. Here we go.
I'll let you in on a secret about engineers. Some of us just want to get paid to play with Legos. Finally, thanks to metal 3D printing, we can kind of do this. The magic of Legos is that you use small bricks to make anything, from race cars to rocket ships, building anything we want, brick by brick. Likewise, with metal 3D printing, we take metal powder composed of fine spherical particles, each particle about the thickness of a human hair, and use a laser to melt these particles together, making anything we want, particle by particle. In the Kalesh Material Science Group, we use metal 3D printing to build technologies that incorporate small and intricate designs to produce lightweight yet strong structures. But one major challenge we face is that as the size of our designs decrease, factors like strength and stiffness are compromised. This is a problem because
I'm going to pause here because we're at 11 o'clock, but you get the idea, right? He got that hook, everybody wants to play with Legos. Everybody can relate to that. He explained it in a very accessible way because it could be really complicated, science and things behind that, but the way he, just little particles, and when we melt them with a laser and we can build anything we want, right? So it's pretty accessible. And then he went into the problem but when then they get weaker. So what are we going to do to address this? So these are some good resources that you can watch and use for some inspiration. And just a reminder, like we said probably a million times, that might not be a good approach for your specific topic or plan, but just not everybody has to do the same kind of hook kind of thing, but just to keep in mind that it's also not just about what you're saying, but how you're saying and how you're engaging people.
Right. Yeah, and with that, I want to thank everyone who's here and who attended. And we will be putting a recording of this. We will be sharing the resources. So, and if you have any additional questions, you can always email the grad studies and we can respond as well. So thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful week. And please remember to submit your presentations on March 28th, because if we don't get that, then we'll send an email of the recording to all the finalists and all the semifinalists, and we can even put it up on the Grad Slam website. So that way it will be easily accessible to you.
Yeah,
It's
this
gonna be-
recording of this, yeah.
we're recording this,
Yeah.
recording of this, and it should be available to you in the next 24 hours. So
All right, and we can stick around. We'll stop recording now, but we can stick around and answer any questions if you have
absolutely.
questions now. So thank you so much.